at what point, if you're making good music often, are people not going to want to tune in?
Hmm.
That's just like a recipe for success. It's like same with like clothing. You make good music or good clothing often. Why wouldn't people want to buy it? You make good food all the time, new recipes. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't people want to come to the restaurant? There's just so much music. And like if you don't compete with the output of music, there's 46,000 songs on Spotify every single day. I do a lot of meditation and I practice mindfulness because my brain will explode. I'm just a human and there's too much data and information being passed into my brain. That's one of the probably the best things that I've been able to teach myself is like actually forcibly taking a step back when things are getting too hot. Um,
How do you know when things are getting too hot?
oh, I can feel it. You know, it's like your nervous system's just firing.
So welcome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's just start with this. What would you like to go by today? How would you like me to refer to you?
You can call me Alex. A lot of
Okay.
people call me baby, and like I like that too. Don't get me wrong, but um, you know, I'll take what I can get. I think Alex works. Do you hear feedback coming from my headphones or no?
Not at all. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
perfect.
it's great. Um,
Have you got the water? I got the tea. There it
nice.
is.
Yeah. No. Sometimes people mistake this for water. It's actually water. No, I'm kidding. It's water. Yeah. So Alex, help me understand a little. I mean, is there anything in particular that you want to talk about today, or anything that you maybe I can help you with?
Still, I mean, like just being a musician is a lot.
Yeah.
At least all of my like musical friends that I work with and talk to all kind of go through some of the same things. I feel like there's like a lot of like self-deprecation and self-doubt that, you know, I think this also probably like encompasses just like the parameters of being a content creator because like you assess your self-worth and validation like almost exclusively off like analytics and statistics.
Mm,
Um, Unfortunately, I haven't figured it out yet.
sure.
So, but I think over the past like 2 years with COVID and everything, I definitely have gotten, you know, okay with it. With, for instance, I had a song, La La La. I don't know if you've heard it, and it just kind of went. Usually my songs would go like this, but this song just went like straight parabolic. Um, and I was like, oh man, like this is it. This is the start of my career. Like this is like I'm gonna be huge. I'm gonna be huge. But in actuality, everything comes in waves, and it ended up going down, and there was a massive psychological issue within myself because I was like, damn, how am I supposed to deal with not everything hitting as well as the other songs and what like that. So I was like, no one really prepared me for that. God bless that, like, I went to university and I'm relatively like a spiritual individual that like I was educated enough to like be like seek help and I was like just happy that I was I had a good upbringing and everything because I was like I don't know if I would have been able to deal with this
Mm,
and you know as, it's weird because it's like it's all so positive and yet there's so many negatives with it.
yeah. Right.
I and no, yeah, no one explained that shit to me, and it's like, damn, like,
Yeah.
what the hell? But it's also kind of like I'm sure like Twitch streamers feel the exact same way. Like I've done a fair amount of Twitch streaming, and it's like if you don't keep up, like things go down if you don't keep up, and it's like it's petrifying. It's like, dang, this is like my livelihood. Like I need it to work. Um, so that in itself is just kind of worrisome. Um, but yeah, I mean that's just like one of a bajillion things that I like course through my brain probably daily. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, um, I guess thank you so much for sharing all that, Alex. I think there's just so much there. Can I kind of just reflect back kind of what I heard?
Yeah, easy, easy, for sure.
So it sounds like you grew up with some amount of advantages. Like it sounds like you had maybe supportive family, you sort of have a spiritual outlook on things, you've done some college, gone through college, and that you have a lot to sort of be grateful for, right? So like you had particular songs and stuff that were hits, and there was a lot of growth. But it's kind of confusing because no one really prepares you for the roller coaster. And
Exactly.
and
No
what
one.
what you would think is that, like, on balance, if you take all of the gains and all of the losses, you are so far ahead. But that's not sometimes how it feels. That's not how your mind actually
Yeah.
looks at it, right? Because your mind is so damn relative. And what it always does is compare to what you've done recently as opposed to looking at like the summation of what you have to be grateful for. And then that's kind of confusing because there's a part of you that's sort of like, well, I shouldn't, I should feel hype about this. And there are parts of you that feel hype about this, but also like sometimes it's kind of weird because like your mental is sort of like not doing what you would expect it to do. And then
Yeah.
it's kind of confusing even further because then it's sort of like, well, like even when I look at things on balance, if everything is in the end a net positive, like, and that's not enough to raise my mood or whatever, then how do I navigate this? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've definitely felt like there are so many situations where, well, my manager knows it for firsthand that I said to him yesterday. I was like, look, man, things aren't moving as well as they should be. Like, we gotta go harder. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I was looking out, I was having a cup of ginger tea, and I drink ginger tea every day because I will die without it. I was looking outside the window and I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing? I'm really happy. I'm so fortunate. But I remember when I bought my apartment, my mom was like, congrats. Like, you really have done this. Like, you know. And I didn't even, like, I bought my fucking apartment. I didn't even think about it. You
Yeah.
know, I've been so distracted and so incredibly, like, um, just caught up in my own shit that, like, I haven't noticed and I haven't taken steps back ever. And I'm now I know that I need to relax sometimes, but unfortunately I'm kind of worried about this year. I have like 100 extra shows until the end of the year. So
Sure.
it's gonna be very busy. But like, yeah, I'm figuring out like the methods and like practices on how to like self-reflect a lot more than I used to, which is good and I think a relatively healthy practice. Um,
Yeah. It also sounds tough because I'm sort of hearing you say, like, if things don't go well, right, you got to go
yeah, it
harder.
sucks. It
You got
sucks.
to go
I
harder.
mean,
But if things are going well, you can't slow down. So you've
exactly.
got two options, right? You got to go harder and you can never slow down. So
Yeah.
there's just one, and so how do you take a step back? It sounds like you have developed some degree of like keeping yourself sane through certain methods and practices and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's tough. I'd love
It
to
is.
talk about this if you're, if that's
I'm that's why I'm here, baby.
ta-
That's why I'm here.
so talk to me, Alex, about being a musician. Tell me about that. What's it
It's
like?
really like a beautiful thing. I started making music because I was with a bunch of my friends. We were smoking a bunch of weed and we laughed over beats. And immediately at that moment, I was like, this is really fun. Like this shouldn't have been as fun, like the creative process of just like making something and like making, which I wouldn't call art back then, but sure, it's called art. Um,
Why wouldn't you call it
you
art?
know, well, the first song was not art. That was that was some crazy, yeah. But now, now I call it sure, it's art. Um, I don't think I make like Kendrick Lamar level music, but the goal is to obviously get to that point where my music is so undeniably like good that people just will allow me to be Baby No Money and forever. Um, and yeah, being a musician, it's very interesting, and I wasn't that musical when I was growing up. My mom forced me to play piano, but I couldn't read. Um, so I just kind of like
You couldn't read
found.
piano or like
Oh yeah, I can
music?
read. No, I can read. Trust me,
Okay.
I can read piano, or like notes, and I still actually struggle with like keys. But I think I have a relatively good like understanding of what sounds good and what doesn't. And I think that's more important in itself than actually having like the technicalities of making music. It's just like being creative and then just like being okay with whatever you're making. Um,
What is what?
doing,
No,
no,
keep
go
going.
ahead.
Sorry, I just
Oh,
have
but
like
yeah,
everything you say. I have so many questions, but just keep going, and I'll
that's great. That's
jot them
great.
down.
I guess being a musician is great. Doing shows, it's kind of interesting because from an outsider's perspective, you would assume that I've been making money from shows, but it is very difficult to make money doing shows. And that's not obviously end all be all, but like I remember when I would go watch people at like 500 capacity shows, I'd be like, dude, he must be making so much money. Like he's so cool. Like, but in actuality, you're just like losing money
So
because you're like paying for
it's
production, you're making this show, like you're paying people, and it's like you're a business that is, allotting other businesses to flourish, essentially. Like, and it's great. My videographer, who's one of my best friends now, well, he calls himself the director now. He has a kid and he's bought a house, and I genuinely feel like I provided him a lot of money, and he bought a house, and he's happy, and it's like, it's just like he like fired a bunch of other people, or not fired, but like stopped working on other projects, and like just kind of works on mine, and it's beautiful. And like I have offered the ability to do that for him, and we both like always reflect, and we're like, dude, like every time I go over to make a music video, it's more like it's like a retreat because we just talk about everything. We talk about health and like wellness and everything, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say other than that, but if you have some questions, we can riff on
yeah,
those.
absolutely. So I'm just sort of you're talking about doing a bunch of shows and how maybe you don't make as much money as you think, so maybe baby no money for real, you know? Um,
You know, it's weird because my dad's ran like a housewares business for like 40 years with his father. And he was like, if you spend more than 7% on advertising, you're losing.
hmm.
And I'm like, 7%? I'm spending like 75% of my
Hmm.
gross income. And it's like, oh, but I have a weird relationship with money we can talk about later too. But yeah, ask me some
So
questions.
yeah, so tell me, you say that you have a feeling of what sounds good. Help me understand where does that come from?
Well, when you make music that is just like objectively dog shit for 4 years, and then you end up making music that is just objectively decent, you kind of just know what's happening. Like I've made like 700 songs probably, and I
Wow,
don't
that's a
make music
lot.
as much as I used to anymore. Yeah, it's a lot, and like only 100 have seen light of day because you make a bunch of garbage. Um, you just like kind of figure it out. I don't really know how to explain it. When you made a good song, like you made a good song, and you usually make it really fast. And when you make it really fast, you're like, oh wow, like this one's gonna connect. I know it's gonna connect. And you have this weird, like deep, profound feeling that it'll work. Everything with that song will work, and just like things kind of magically just put themselves into place where it's like it seems like it's luck, but it's not. And
T-
yeah, that I guess that's the best like descriptor of how to know what sounds right or how to know what sounds good. You also need to be like pretty tapped in with what popular music is, the sound of popular music at the current state, because like for instance, look at Drake. Like this next song, like there's gonna be a new genre that's popping because of TikTok, and then like little do you know, Drake's gonna make like the exact same song that's like the biggest song in the world, and then his relevancy is still at key. So
hmm.
that's just how you do it. I don't know if he's necessarily doing it himself. I can't really see him being on TikTok 24/7, but if he is, then God bless Drake.
Yeah, so that's so interesting because what I'm hearing from you, Alex, is like this almost like duality between, on the one hand, keeping up with trends, on the one hand, grinding, on the one hand, this sort of very like external process of making music. And on the flip side, also like almost a spiritual process, which has nothing to do with that, which is this sort of like deep, profound feeling that you have where you kind of know that you're like giving birth to something, right? And it's not calculated, it's not based on trends. And you
Yeah.
kind of just feel it and it starts coming out really fast and you just feel really good about it.
No, 100%. I think it's interesting. I've done my fair share of like dabbling with medicinal and non-medicinal drugs. And when you're making a hit song, there's nothing better. Like it's like euphoria. I can't explain it. Like you just like you're sitting there and everything's just flowing out of you. And it's like, I'm not the best freestyler. I'm not the most I wouldn't say I'm like the most creative individual. If I was, my career would probably be bigger. But you just feel it. And uh it's like, when you like crush on a girl, you know, uh and you like love them for like the first infatuation period. It's kind of like that.
Hmm.
When you're making a song, you're like, damn, dude. You start feeling yourself. You maybe take your shirt off in the studio and like you start sweating with the boys and yeah, it's like a really really good time. And I I make music with my friends because I'm so much more comfortable with them. And like it's just like making music with your friends. There's nothing better. And creating, and that's the beauty of being an artist, is like the creative perspective. Like having to be creative, and you get accoladed because you're creative. And like when you see that, it's kind of like the same concept of being like a stand-up comedian. I feel like a little bit less hectic because stand-up comedians are like exclusively like they require a laugh,
Hmm.
whereas like we have more emotions that we can like go with.
Got it.
um um but dude,
Yeah.
life's good. I
So
mean,
so help me understand, what do you think it is that allows you to get to that state of connection? What are the things that sort of allow you to create your best music? What goes into that?
coffee for sure.
Okay.
um I mean, if you're living in the 2022s, and you're not a coffee addict, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion. I have like so many gut issues that like drinking coffee is like a double-edged sword for me. So I still do it because I'm addicted, and when I tour, I don't. So when I have a coffee, it's like, wow, it's fabulous.
Hmm.
It's like it's like the one thing in life that is always gonna be there and is always gonna be good. I don't know if you drink coffee like that, but I fucking love coffee. Um, but as far as like mentally where my head's at when I'm in that, like in the zone, I have no idea. Because if I knew, I would, regurgitate the knowledge of like
Yeah.
me pinpointing. But
So maybe we can talk, because I have some ideas about that. I've worked with a lot of different creators, musicians, also like people like athletes, and even when I've worked with people like traders or professional poker players, like we'll talk a
yeah,
lot about, kind of getting into that zone. And I'm especially thinking about people in finance where they sort of like, or poker, where they can almost like predict the future, like in an eerie kind of way, right? Where it almost sounds similar to me of your process, where you're taking in a lot of information, but the process of putting that information together is
hmm,
not really conscious. And then like it almost becomes like you have to read what's going on in finance and trends and what's happening with bond prices and cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff. But then like it kind of goes deep inside you in some way, and then it like, you know, stews for a while, and then something comes out of it.
yeah. I mean, I've definitely, because living in Vancouver, British Columbia, there's usually no sun, so SADs are a super real thing here. And every time like there's a period of where I'm staying uh in like the off season, I would say. And then I go to LA and there's sun. I'm just like so happy. Everything's bottled up. Like the emotions are bottled up. And I just usually do like a sporadic spree of writing music. And I usually write like an album in a month, and I just like bang it all out. And maybe that's it.
Okay.
I have no idea. It's very profound.
Yeah.
Um, it's super profound. I never expected to be a musician, so I'm glad that I've been able to experience these emotions and like do what I want to do every day. Like, people always ask me like, yeah, like what's it like? And I'm like, what it is the best way to describe it is you get up in the morning and you get up. You don't lie in bed.
Hmm.
I don't remember the last. I mean, the last time I laid in bed was I was incredibly hungover. But like that's the only time I would like lie in bed because I'm like, okay, my body like genuinely needs it, rather than like me just waking up on a normal day and be like, oh, I just want to get to work. Or like I just want to like work on this because everything I put into it is like directly correlated with like an increase or more success, and
Hmm.
it's so refreshing and rewarding to be able to like have my own hand in things. I have a friend that works at a Facebook, and he's just like furious. He's like, dude, like I'm way too creative for this. Like
Hmm.
I'm doing XYZ every day, and that's all I get to do. And then I'm like, but that's kind of nice. Like, you're doing XYZ, you're getting paid for it. You have a great life now, and you don't have to be creative. You don't have to expend
Yeah.
those stores, right? So I've always just been like, damn, if I could work a 9 to 5, that would like progress my career to the point where it's like progressing it, like actually genuinely progressing it, I'd be stoked. But it's just too difficult. Like when you have all these social medias and all these like all this data in front of your eyes, all you want to do is just keep feeding the data machine. So
Yeah. It is. The tricky thing about feeding the data machine, especially when it comes to our mind, is the more we feed it, the more it grows and the hungrier it gets.
it's nuts, isn't it? It's crazy. Um, I wish there were no social media, but then I would not be a musician. But I
Yes.
wish there wasn't, you
So
know.
can you help me understand something, Alex? You mentioned that you'll be in Vancouver, British Columbia for a while, and then when you go down to LA, you mentioned you used the phrase bottled up emotions. So I was a little bit confused. Does that mean when you get down to LA you start bottling them, or when you get down to LA
Oh,
you
no.
uncap them?
I cannot deal with not having sun. In Vancouver, it rains like 75% of the days of a year, and it's piss. And it's sunny in Vancouver now, and it's interesting. My mom calls me every single time it's sunny, if that makes sense. So she's so happy. She's like, "Oh, I want to talk about the day. I want to do this. I want to do
Mm.
that." Whereas like when you go down to LA, it's just sunny every day, and people are so spoiled down there. It's nuts, man. They are spoiled, and yeah, it's just bottled up. I'm just like ready to write usually, and then it's like an expungement of sunlight and vitamin D when you walk down there. I like always. My manager always sees me just like lying outside on the pavement, just soaking up the rays, like shirtless in his neighborhood. So
So
yeah.
so it sounds like the emotions come out.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
And then when you're in Vancouver,
They're,
you
they're
kind
they're
of
usually positive because I'm in a better mood to
got
be
it.
down there. So it's not like I'm expelling the negative. Well, perhaps I am, but it definitely feels more positive.
And so tell me a little bit, Alex, about how you manage. So you mentioned that you develop certain methods or practices that sort of help you keep you sane and maybe like you stay grounded with. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I do a lot of meditation, and I practice mindfulness because my brain will explode. I am just a human, and there's too much data and information being passed into my brain. Um, I studied kinesiology at university, and I know the benefits of exercise. So I will sometimes slap myself in the face and be like, I need to go to the gym because I'm being anxious for literally nothing. And, you know, I'm having some crazy intrusive thoughts that I just know will be gone if I go for a 10-minute jog. Um, and, I can't really stress the benefit of physical activity. I used to be an athlete. It helps you sleep, it helps you eat, it helps you digest, it helps you be more of a man, be more of a woman. It helps you literally. It's the best thing you could probably do for yourself. So I know that deep down that whenever I talk to some fans that are like, no, I'm like anxious, I'm depressed, like what am I supposed to do? And I'm just like, I'm like, I guarantee you will feel better if you do like 30 minutes of cardio every single day for like a month. Just give it a shot. And like they always come back to like, damn, how'd you know? And I was like, bro, it's not the information is out there. Um, but it feels good that I can like actually provide some like relatively decent information because of my degree, even though I don't use my degree and it's completely waste of my money. But it was I got educated. It's good, and I learned how to copy from text and not get caught. So would you look at that? Um, eh, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. So you mentioned you meditate. You mentioned that exercise is really important, especially for managing some of your thoughts and stuff. When you say meditate, can you help me understand what you mean?
Well, I just do like guided meditation. You know, it's impressive that like a 10-minute to 20 minute of just like breathing, like proper breathing and like forcing yourself to relax and forcing your like train of thought to be somewhere else is like, dude, it's nuts how much it helps sometimes. Like if I'm overwhelmed, I have to take a step back and because it's just like what's the point of being overwhelmed? Like I already have gray hair, I don't need any more. And I think that's one of the probably the best things that I've been able to teach myself is like actually forcibly taking a step back when things are getting too hot. Um,
How do you know when things are
that,
getting too hot?
oh, I can feel it. You know, it's like your nervous system's just firing. Like, I was talking to my therapist a couple days ago, and she was saying like, yeah, when you're in a room with someone that is feeling hot, like you can feel it
Hmm.
and like subconsciously feel it because like nervous systems can like kind of like communicate with each other. So, um, I found that really interesting because like I've been in several situations where people are like, you know, hypothetically mad at me or hypothetically sad with me and hypothetically frustrated with me, and you can feel it. So like without like them, you know, addressing their issue, where it's like if you're in a room and someone wants to say something to you but doesn't know how to communicate it with you, you can feel the angst. And sometimes when you know whether or not you can feel the angst or like you have that angst, it's just like, dude, like take a step back. Nothing matters, you know. And back to like the first point that we discussed is like in the end of the day, nothing fucking matters
Help
unless it's family,
help me
you know.
understand that.
Dude, it's like family, friends, people you love, and that's it. Like, dude, nothing matters. Like, that's it. That's the only shit that matters. And obviously, food, because food is, oh, I love food. Every type of food, man. Oh, there's being able to tour and eat food is the real actual blessing of being an artist. But I have a gut issue, so I don't get to eat too much food. But typically, like Asian cuisine, I just like my favorite. But yeah, nothing matters. It's weird. My videographer and I, we do a fair share of hallucinogens and like healthy, obviously. And it's great to be able to ground yourself with those medicinally. And we have had so many conversations where it's like, dude, like nothing matters. And I'm like, you know, you are right in the end of the day. It's like having him in my life matters more than the business that we do together and the money that we might make. 100%. And like what other things in life are like work, enjoyment, and that's it. So it's like
So,
you know,
can you help me understand a little bit about what role hallucinogens play in your what do you get out of using them? Like, what do they do for you creatively? Or
I don't really make too many things creatively on them, but when I do a lot of work, sometimes I'm like, yo, Shrez, I'm coming over. And it's kind of just like a reset, you know? It's like an emotional reset where for that period you don't have to deal with anything that you've dealt before or and you can just live in that exact moment. For instance, like LSD is it's great. It's like an intertwined experience that it's like maybe the perfect definition of YOLO. You know, like
hmm.
carpe diem, live in the moment, and you just live in that exact encapsulated high, for instance. And everything is super intertwined, and every single point and every single memory is, in my opinion, is stored as one. And you know, I don't do it that often, but when I need it, I'm like, damn, I really need to like. like think about things. And
Can you help me understand what is your sense of when you need it? Like, what do you detect within yourself that sort of tells you, like, signals to you, hey, it's like it's time for this?
just when you're ready, I don't know.
Okay.
Like you just know. It's just like a I don't know. That's a good question, actually. Because I definitely will never do drugs when I'm not in a healthy place. That's just like stupid. So perhaps
What
me
makes
just
that
being
stupid?
because it will drive you down. And I've done mushrooms when I wasn't in a good place, and I think it was a expelling. I did a ton of expelling, but it wasn't a positive experience.
Hmm.
Um, and I believe that life should almost exclusively be positive. And you know, surround yourself with like my team is amazing. I was at the Junos, and everyone on my team is so positive and so charismatic and loving, and you don't find that often in the music biz, and usually it's more like just business is business.
Mm.
But I like the wholesomeness is what I kind of strive for with people that I work with and people that like genuinely care about everyone else's well-being. And it's really nice. And like having like I read this book called Nonviolent Communication. I can't remember that Marshall something. I don't know. You probably read it. Great fucking book for business, for relationships, for this, for that, for family. And it just like has offered me the ability to like really grow and figure out the most effective ways to communicate and to have a safe workplace and like emotionally safe workplace and whatnot. Um, I don't know where I was really going with this point, but when I know I need to do them, it's just like I just wake up one day and I'm like, fuck it, let's go have some fun.
Okay.
And you know, I don't do it. I don't do it because I need something. I think I do it because it's like, oh, I like why not just have a little reset? Like a
Got
little
it.
press reset. It's like that button. It's like um done or it's done. I don't know, Home Depot button. Home I don't fucking know, whatever.
I think
Regardless,
reset sounds good. So maybe what it, yeah, I've got, let me, can I think for a second, Alex?
think all the way. I'm gonna get some water for my tea. We're back. The thoughts are arousing. Am I well lit up enough? I think I am. I
Yeah,
can't
the
really
only thing
tell.
is sometimes when you move out of focus, but that's not when you like lean back in your chair. That's really the only thing, but otherwise it's fine.
Okay, cool.
Alex, I'm gonna kind of push you a little bit. So when you say nothing matters, so there's this kind of idea, like when I see a successful creator, or when I imagine other people see a successful creator, the way that you live your life doesn't seem on the surface to the way you live your life doesn't seem like it's a guy who doesn't think anything matters, right? You're kind of talking about doing more shows. You're talking about grinding. You're talking about kind of hustling. You're talking about, you know,
Yeah,
waking up. You made 700 songs, 100 of which that does not sound like someone who for whom nothing matters. And I
it gives me life. It doesn't. Okay. It's hard because I'm figuring out how to perpetuate the nothing matters. Um, I think that truthfully, I know deep down that like me making a new song, it's nothing matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Why
It's like
not?
because it just doesn't. I do it for myself, absolutely, but like I'm just a speck on Earth. Like we're all just specks on Earth. And I think the only thing that matters is like personal growth. And my goal for this year is to become like obviously it's probably a little bit of a difficult ask, but like become like the best person I've ever been in my 26 years of life. And like whether that's like just having better relationships and like owning up to things that I've done and like really just coming full slate clean and like that's what matters. That's what matters. It's rather than like, making money. Like I love making money. My dad grew me up, you know, it's a capitalistic society and we got to play the games sometimes. I'm very fortunate to have made a lot of money, and I'm safe, and it's amazing. It's actually like it's beautiful, and I thank every single one of my fans. Um, but it's like nothing matters. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain
So
it.
I maybe we can clarify because I don't think what I'm sort of hearing you maybe say is that the stuff that people traditionally think matters, like money and fame and success, that the more you've come to understand yourself in this world, those aren't the things that matter. And sort of like if you make a 10 songs and none of them see the light of day, like that actually doesn't matter. Is that fair to say? Is that what you kind of mean by
Yeah,
that?
yeah, 100%. Like yesterday, I was like, I don't know how much longer I'll do music. It is pretty grueling sometimes with touring and whatnot. But I mean, I could just like drop music and not tour. But I was thinking, I was like, damn, like, once I'm done, like, I'm gonna do something that actually matters. Like, start a nonprofit organization. I live in Vancouver, and there's like a really, really bad like drug problem downtown East Side, and it's like, it's the warmest place in Canada, so most
Mm.
homelessness or homeless people come and they get like train tickets to come to Vancouver, and it's bad. And I've lived here my whole life, and I donate a lot of money to the Women's Center. And I like 90% of all the free clothing I ever get, I just give it down. I'm like I'm not gonna wear this shit, like, so I
Yeah.
just give it to people who need it. And I've always really, really always wanted to uh, do something positive, like very positive. Like I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to help people. And when I broke my back, I figured out how to be empathetic, and because I actually went through an experience that was really traumatizing. And I was like, how can I like how best can I help and give back? And I was like, well, I could just give back from being like an athlete and understanding that people go to physiotherapy but never actually fucking do their exercises. It's like so I knew that and I like from first experience. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I feel like I've helped a ton of people with my music, and it's an honor, and I feel blessed to have the ability to just make shit in my bedroom and like make people happy. It's great. But I feel like it's very hard to materialize sometimes through the internet, and I'm sure
What
like
do you mean
Twitch.
by that materialized?
Well, unless I'm doing shows, like I don't see my fans, like I don't like every time I do a show, even if it's sold out, I'm like, is anyone here? Like just like
Mm.
it's like kind of like that surreal feeling where it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? This makes
Mm.
no sense. Like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I am. And all of my friends are like, Alex, like the show is sold out. People will be here. Relax. And I just have this weird aura around me that's like, uh, whether or not it's like a perfectionist perspective, I don't know. But yeah.
What is that aura around you? What is it? How does it affect you? What does it create in your mind?
Well, growing up, my dad and my mom are pretty traditional, and like they were like work them to a pulp type thing. I started working at my dad's business like when I was like 8, 9. Um, paid under the table, let's go, we got a little money, and it was great. It was super positive. But I'm a workaholic, and it's like I just want my things. I want things that I work on to do well, and um, I'm there's two sides of me because it's like I don't care. I really don't. I don't want to care, but then I do because it's like, I'm putting my personality, I'm putting my emotions in my music, whether or not they're like ridiculous emotions, sure. But I put a lot of time and energy into my music that I want things, as anyone would, right? It's like you write a paper that's 70 pages, ideally you pass. Um, so it's when I was growing up, I was the youngest of the family, and I kind of had it a little bit easy in comparison to my brother and sister. And I feel like there's always just been like a weird little sense of like, you'll work harder, work harder, work harder, work harder. Like not necessarily like you're not enough, but like it's just like that workaholic
Hmm.
has been distilled in my
Yeah.
soul. My dad was working like 82-hour weeks before COVID hit, you know. My sister's doing her PhD in psychology. Um, and my brother's works his ass off being a photographer, and my mom's Swiss Danish. So me showing up late, never a thing. Um, so that's kind of like where I grew up, and like that was like the vibe in the house. So, and I'm fortunate to say that this is the first time my grandparents aren't doing too well, unfortunately. And this is the first time I've ever felt family distress, and it is such a fucking blessing. And I'm so thankful that I grew up in like a house that was very supportive and very strong and
Mm.
very healthy. Dude, I can't even. When I have kids, I got to do exactly what my parents did. And I just like I can't thank them anymore. Soon as they're ready for me to buy them a house and buy them whatever they want, like I'm all there. Like anything they want. I
Mm.
just like can't repay them anymore. It's fucking
So,
amazing.
so Alex, I'm noticing that there's a lot of two sides to the coins when I hear you speak. So like kind of on the one hand, you're sort of saying, there's this workaholic tendency, and then on the other hand, like nothing matters and like what's important is important. On the
Yeah.
one hand, you're very calculatingly because that's what you got to do in the business, right? Like stay up with trends, work on your socials, like cultivate that kind of thing. And on the other hand, like none of that stuff really matters. You could focus on making music, or you could do shows that you feel really grateful for the opportunity to like help people and support people and inspire people and make good music, and at the same time you kind of feel like really disconnected from them. Even when it comes to things like health, like you're someone who really prioritizes your health, and at the same time sometimes you're hungover from time to time and things like that. You kind of go too hard, maybe eat a little bit too much. And even when it comes to things like the positivity, it's like so when I sit with you, I get the sense of someone who's very optimistic, someone who's very hopeful. But we sort of see, or I'm sort of hearing, like you'll use words like grueling, right? Like what you're setting yourself up for is going to have dark moments. And what I'm kind of curious about is like, so I almost see you as like just all of these. I think on the surface, people may think they're conflicting. I don't necessarily think they're conflicting. I think it may be like integrating opposites as
Yeah.
opposed to conflicting. But I'm kind of curious, like, can you tell us a little bit about like the grueling part and like the hard part and like, because most of the artists I've worked with, I mean, I think it's the shit that makes their music and art so profound. It's not the highs, or
Yeah,
or
100%.
or
100%.
it's the dawn after the dark night. And what I'm getting from you more today is the dawn, and maybe we're just catching you on a good day. But I'm super curious about sort of your creative process and what you've been through that's hard, or like, can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I guess there's like two sides of the business, right? It's like the music itself, and then like touring itself. And music is chill, totally fine. Just make it, put it out, hope it blows up. Fingers crossed. Do a lot of marketing, make a bunch of TikToks, make funny Twitter posts, and have fun with it. And but touring sometimes it's tough. Um, you know, I have been dealing with like chronic sleep issues for like 7 years. So I'm sleep deprived like almost 24/7, and I'm probably burnt out for the
Mm.
past 2 years. Um, and when you're touring, especially if you're flying, it's it's like you go to bed at maybe 1, you wake up at 4, you go to the plane, and you rinse and repeat for months. And it's amazing. I love it. Being on stage is what makes it beautiful. Um, but it's just like it's exhausting. And it's I said this shit out myself, so it's obviously my fault. But so I can't really be like the one to be like, oh, I don't want to do it. But but I do. I really do. I like genuinely do. But sometimes like for instance, I have vocal fry right now, and I've drank like 35 liters of water in the past 2 days, 3 days. Like I've probably pissed out all my electrolytes. Uh and I get scared because I'm like, oh shit, like if I blow my voice right now, like the next month is gone.
Hmm.
And like that's the stressful thing. I used to be totally fine with doing shows, but I ended up blowing my voice in Australia one time. And then it just like has never really gotten better. And then I developed this like thing called SIBO, which is like small intestine bacteria overgrowth. And I can't eat dairy, can't eat sugar, can't eat gluten. So the touring I'm eating is not ideal as it used to be because I used to eat the good all the time. But you know, I go for Vietnamese food, and that's like the one thing I love the most. But yeah, it's just difficult. Like I didn't expect it to be as tiring. Um, but it's all worth it because you know you get to see the people that make your life. It's it's like I do it for myself. I make my music because it's an outlet, and I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do. But I do it for my fans because, dude, it's like you gotta repay them somehow, and like the easiest way and the best way to do it is like you throw down a good show, and like you take pride in your show, and you show them that like this is a reason why I listen to this guy. You know, this is a reason why I like fuck with his music, and it's sick. He's great. He's a nice person, and like I've always felt that trying to be give every single person as much time as humanly possible is like the best way to do it because they've given me time. Time is money, and you know I can buy time when I get older.
Alex, if it's you say it's all worth it, if it wasn't worth it, would you be able? Would you know? Would you notice? Would you let yourself say so?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm pretty aware with when things aren't worth it. I don't know what else I would be doing regardless. I do want to go back to school when I get older. I want to get like a degree in nutrition and work for like a rugby team. Um, but I don't know. I I really think it is. I really think my life is amazing, and I'm so happy to do what I do.
What do you
And
do with the parts of yourself that doesn't feel like it's amazing? Those parts that I mean, so because this is sort of what I'm getting from you is like I understand that I see that you're resilient. I think that
definitely.
the challenge is that I think there's so many artists who can't do what you've done. Right? They're the ones that wake up at you go to bed at 1 in the morning, and then you wake up 3 hours later to catch a flight. And in the grand scheme of things, I think you've developed a healthy amount of detachment, is what I would call it when you sort of talk about nothing matters. And we can talk about spirituality and stuff in a second. But like, bro, like that sounds rough, man. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I
Dude,
mean,
sleeping on flights, I wish first class wasn't so stupidly expensive and sleeping on flights was like applicable for me. I put my mask on, I put earplugs in, and then you know like the neck pillows, I wear it like this. So it's like a little like Teletubby, and I like put my head on the side.
yeah.
And dude, yeah, I just wish I wish I got like
I mean,
fuck the plane, dude. I hate planes.
I know. I mean, I like Alex. There's a part of me that's a little bit worried that you're kind of like you're eating up your life energy for the sake of what you do. Like, your guts kind of going out, like you're having trouble sleeping. Like, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but
No, it's good.
there's a part of me that's like concerned about the price that you're putting yourself through.
I don't really know what to say to that. I mean, I was hanging out with my dad yesterday and I fell asleep in the living room. He's like, "Bro, it's 4 p.m." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm tired." Um, and he's like, "You know, you're burning it too hard. This life you lead is too hectic." And It is, but it's fun. I love it. I am an I'm I love it. I
How much of it is that you love it, and how much of it is that you can't afford to do it any other way? Right? Because I'm sort of hearing, because I think I'm hearing both. You know, I hear a lot of genuineness, and if my questions are offensive, please let me know. But I'm also like
Oh.
wondering, because I think part of the challenge is that when you love it, it's so much easier to sacrifice yourself for it. You know,
Oh, 100%. There's no
right?
there's
Like,
no
and then like the
I
hustle
mean,
rolls in, and then the social media, and you're doing so many shows, and it sounds like you're not making a whole lot of money, and then like, you know, like here you are, like wholesome, like doing it for the art, and like this is the music industry, man. Like someone's making money, it just may not be you. Know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, it is pretty cutthroat this business. I don't know. I really that's probably something that I should like well, that's something I know that I should think about more often. Um, I had this manager, Antonio, and we ended up splitting because it was just COVID and no one was happy with anyone. And no
Mm.
one was doing well, no one was happy. And I remember we got on a call and we had like a debriefing like 4 months later type thing. It was like a full blown breakup type thing. It was pretty funny. And now we're friends now and we work together again and it's great. But we were like, dude, we were killing ourselves. Like just straight up like ruining our lives. And we had a long conversation about it because like we were spending like 18 hours a day just like trying to market my music and trying to push my music out and like it was like statistically doing infinitely better than my music now and like but it's like at what point, at what cost? um I do definitely, there's no question in my mind, struggle with work life balance. um and I know I have that problem, but it also comes from people who aren't as passionate.
Well,
And
I just
like
lost you there. What do you mean? Does
oh
it comes from people who aren't as
it
passionate?
comes from people who aren't as passionate about not necessarily what I do, but about things. I when I focus fire on things, I focus really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I love things, and when I love, it's like I love. Um, so I I've been trying to work on the work-life balance within myself type thing. It's like rather than just like going to do things, I've been trying to figure out specifically like what I need from both. Um, but it's difficult. It's a
Sure.
very that's one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my entire life because I love doing what I do, and I feel like a lot of people don't have that ability to say that they do, and it's like it's a goddamn blessing for me. Um, you
I
know,
wonder if that blessing comes with an obligation.
Obligation in what sense?
Like, you know, since you love what you do, does that mean that you can't take a day off? You know, since you are so lucky, if that comes with sort of like a certain amount of
Yeah.
like, you know, you on the one hand, you wake up every day and you're ready to get out of bed, which is awesome. Like you have a lot to be grateful for. And also it's like if you didn't feel like getting out of bed, would that be okay?
Yeah, I hear exactly where you're coming from. A good example was my friend Young Gravy blew up, and I was still at university. He was still at university too. And I just remember being like, I need to take this up a notch. I am obliged because I have to do this. No one else is granted the opportunity to have a frequent collaborator, like the most frequent collaborators of both of our behalves, blow up. And then I'm just like, dude, like we have an EP together. Like this is go time. Like so I stopped like partying and I started drinking coffee at 3 in the morning and like sleeping less and just like working my ass off because I was like, I have to do this because I look down in the future I'm gonna shoot my feet, like I'm be like, why didn't I try? Like why didn't I take this opportunity of a lifetime? And maybe that's kind of where it came from, like
Alex,
I like, yeah, I don't know.
what does it take to succeed in this business?
Um, a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is facade. A lot of it is
What was that facial expression? I asked you, what does it take to succeed? And it's interesting because you're so positive, and I was expecting a positive answer. It takes passion, it takes love, but you're like, oh fuck me.
I don't know. I mean, one, the biggest thing is just good music, if you can make it, and two is a lot of it. Because at what point, if you're making good music often, are people not gonna want to tune in? You know?
Hmm.
That's just like a recipe for success. It's like same with like clothing. You make good music or good clothing often, why wouldn't people want to buy it? You make good food all the time, new recipes. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't people want to come to the restaurant? You know what I mean? It's like you just have to be innovative. You have to be creative. You have to be always on your toes. Um,
I'm hearing what it
and that's
takes
it.
is all the time.
That's all the time, 100%. If I did my first 10,000 hours before I blew up. So, you know, if that's a consolation of how much work this fucking shit takes.
Tell me about
Uh,
the luck in the facade.
well, you got to be interesting. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have presented my branding online as me, and I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to be anyone else, and it's great. And I don't have like imposter syndrome, and I'm very happy that
Hmm.
I've done that, and I just get to literally be myself on a constant basis. Um, and I think that's also like a selling point with my brand is a lot of people like me. I'm just a nerd, I'm just like a gamer kid. Like I'm wearing a Diablo 3 t-shirt, like, and I feel like people can relate to that. And I'm glad that I have been able to offer people a ton of like a safe place to relate to. Um, Whether or not like my music is PG, but I mean, fuck it, who cares? Um,
I'm not hearing much
uh,
of a facade. I'm kind of confused because what I'm hearing is that this is actually like authentically who you are. So what do you mean
well,
by
no,
that?
no, no, that's for me. That's what I'm saying. I just like, dude, I met so many musicians,
Hmm.
and they're not at all like what they perceive themselves to be online. And it's like, yeah, you can fall into the world where you become that person that you've created, but you need people to live vicariously through you. So you need to be cool. You need to be interesting enough, intricate. Whereas like it's so interesting because I take Twitch as an example, and streaming is everyone's real on it. There's just like no point of not being like unless you're Dr. Disrespect, I'm like legend, like perhaps he is a little Dr. Disrespect inside, but like there's no way he's like every day walks down and with coffee and he's just like wearing sunglasses and there's a green screen in the back. It's like he's obviously like there's some of him there, but it's way more difficult because you got to be on fire for like 7 hours, right? And that's just not for me. Like I did Twitch streaming for a little while, and there'd be days where I'd be like slam a coffee and be like go crazy, and then my voice would be hurting afterwards, and I'd be like, dude, I gotta just not do that. I'm just gonna watch Master Chef and just follow the beta or the yeah like the master meta. Um, if that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, it's interesting because this may sound kind of weird, Alex, but you're just really different from most of the people that I've worked with. Like, so I'm all for gratitude. I'm all for appreciating things, but like, I don't I how can I say this? So I
Hit me with
imagine
it.
it's not a bad thing. So I was hoping that when we had this interview, there are creators out there, budding musicians, who could watch this and learn something from it and could really take away something about what's made you successful and apply it to their own lives. But what I'm really hearing is that there's just so much about, what you have that I think it's hard for people to take that away, right? Like I think it's just so hard for people to take away. And that's why I'm so curious about where your understanding, where your gratitude, like where does this come from? Like I can't tell if you're I
It comes
can't
from
tell.
the gratitude comes from all of my friends being like, Alex, wake the fuck up.
What does that mean?
Take a day off. Take a day off. Enjoy your life. Go
Mm,
outside. Touch some grass, like but that's where that comes from. That's where like my support group and my friend group is unbelievable. And I couldn't have asked for a better friend group. And you know, couldn't ask for a better group of real people that don't yes man me.
mm.
And if I send them a song and they hate it, they will say this is trash, Alex. Fucking go eat an egg. You know what I mean? Like, so that's where that comes from. Is like I'm blessed to be around great people. Um, but I mean, when it comes to like the to provide information of like how things have been done in my business is like I don't know how else to put it other than like just drop music all the time and do a ring of the social media. Don't discredit a social media because you might blow up on one social media first, and like just update it every day if you want. Update it once a week. Sure. That's all you got to do. That's like, and you just got to make good music. You just got to make good music. So however long it's going to take you to make good music should be the moment when you realize, or the moment that you're like, all right, now things might work, rather than from the get. Like I know so many musicians in Vancouver that like have been working on an album for 4 years, and it's like, why haven't you put more music out? Because like no one's gonna care about the album. And it's like you need to utilize your fan base, and like that fan base needs to help you. um and if they believe in you, they will share it, they will come to the shows, they will post the shows, they will um they're your team in the end of the day, and it's like it's great. I don't, does
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
help?
yeah. So let me see if I think maybe I had a bias in and of myself in that I wanted a romantic answer. I wanted
Yeah,
like
there's no
like
romance. There's no romance here, man.
no, I
There's no
mean,
ro-
and I think that may be the message. Like, so what I'm hearing is like, here's your formula for success. The first is make a shit ton of music.
Yeah,
Most of
100%.
it's gonna suck, and
Yep.
that's how it is, right? Like it's like a numbers game, and the more you make, the greater the chance is like like it's almost like you're trying to bottle lightning. Like you got to
Oh,
catch those sparks.
completely. That is it. Like unless you're the type of guy that's like a just like a genius like songwriter, like, but there's 10 a generation. So that's just not the case. Um and like nowadays there's just so much music. And like if you don't compete with the output of music, there's 46,000 songs on Spotify every single day.
New songs.
New songs every single fucking day. And it's like 0.0001% of those get above like 2,000 streams. Isn't that crazy? Like absolutely mind-blowing. And it's like, how do you beat through the like whack the weeds, Like how do you get through the weeds? And it's like you just need to reach out to people, you need to collaborate, that's the one thing I actually noticed with content creators. I guess that's like the best terminology to say it, like YouTubers and Twitch streamers, is they are very open to collaborate. Very, very open. And it's, whether or not it's like a little biased perspective because I am Baby No Money, like I have a brand and it's like completely separate from the world, sure. But they're very nice people. The music biz, not so much.
Hmm.
Um, and it's way more cliquey. It's way more um, the just like kind of I hate to say this word, clout based. And it's like if you don't have your shit up, if this shit's not going, no one cares. And it's like no one will care. And it's like it's difficult, you know.
Yeah.
I
I,
feel like whereas like the gaming world, dude, it's so nice. Everyone's sick, and I love playing video games with people, and it's like everyone's just funny, you know. It's like that's it. No one is like no one's making sad music because they're sad or like sad gaming because they're sad. Everyone's just happy, upbeat. Like obviously people have their own shit they're dealing with for the most part, but like you know what I mean? It's like it's a completely different like tone.
yeah. I mean, there's just so much I'm sort of starting to put together. So one is like, it's this sort of tension between. So what I'm really noticing about your life, Alex, is that you're walking a tightrope in so many different ways. So
Yep.
there's like you got to hold on to nothing matters, because if you let things start to get to you in this world of social media and stuff like that, like it's going to tear you apart. Right? You
Yeah.
can't let that aura of negativity start to take control. And balancing that is that you in the music industry, it is about clout. It is about who's popping off. It is about, you know, because there are 46,000 songs a day. And in a sense, like in the industry, everything matters.
Yeah.
And like what I'm hearing about kind of your kind of the way that you've made it is, first of all, it's just make a shit ton of music, because some of it's going to be bad, most of it's going to be bad, but also that you've got to grind like on all the other channels too. Like it's like, you got to keep
Yeah.
up with socials, you got to do shows, you know, you got to spend everything you've got. You've got to be able to take criticism, and then also like in order for you to succeed, just given how much that squeezes out of you, right? Like it squeezes so much out of you, because you gotta be getting on airplanes, you gotta post on Twitter, and you gotta be making music somewhere in there,
Yeah.
right? And so then how do you survive that? Like you gotta have solid friends. You gotta have
Mhm.
people to keep you in check. You gotta have people to help you unplug. And you
I,
gotta
I found the the first couple tours were like, okay, like I'm gonna party. You know what I mean? Like, why not? Like this might not last. Ended up lasting, God bless. Um, and dude, first tour was a shit show. Just don't like I don't party much. The last time I partied was at the Junos, and I like really partied because so the Junos is the Grammys of Canada, pretty much. And I got to perform, and I said on live television that I was no longer a virgin, and it was just. Then I dapped up the health minister of Canada afterwards and Shawn Mendes, and it was just like the funniest shit I've ever done in my life. And like it was so invigorating because it was on live television in Canada. And I think I tapped the bell for Canadian culture one time, and I was like, okay, I got to party. I was like, I need to rage, and I don't party anymore because I have my gut issue, and holy shit, that set me back. If I was legitimately on tour, I would have had to cancel shows. Like I was unable to speak for the past 3 days, and I haven't spoken. This is pretty much the first time I've had a conversation, and I'm glad because I'm using the muscle
yeah.
again, and I got to go tomorrow. But just treat yourself with respect
Yeah.
when you're touring. That's the only way you're gonna make it. Like you unless you're just like Motley Crue, which is hectic, but I don't know if it's just not healthy to do that. And you won't last. Like you will burn out so fast.
Yeah. I'm
And yeah.
I'm hearing to keep up the pace, you've really got to, everything from ginger tea to exercise to trying to sleep right. Cause like, I mean, it's going to take every ounce you've got, and it's going to take a little bit more. And so you've got to figure out how to stay on top of things as best as you can.
100%.
And I think what's sort of sad about that answer is it's not this sort of like deep creative struggle, right? It's like it's waking up on time. It's like staying free of gluten and dairy, and
It's
making
it
making 100 songs that will never see the light of day, or 600 songs
yeah.
in your case. And
It is the struggle, man. It's the struggle.
it
Not being able to eat pizza is a fucking struggle. Oh my goodness gracious, dude. Bread is so simple, the simplest carb ever, and you can just like and it just fuels you. Pasta, so simple, but nothing. It is what it is though.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions for me so far, Alex? Anything that you're kind of curious about, or anything that I mentioned that you want to talk about?
Nah, man. I unless you have like a if anything's like sparked a trend thought process in your head where it's like there are these weird, it's like every single conversation always falls at one point, and it's like every single thing that I state is like there's a note where it's like, oh, that can probably be reiterated because of this. I would love to hear that
Yeah.
and just
So yeah. So I've got a couple of thoughts. One is that I think I think you're pretty self aware, and so you remember I was asking you like, how do you know when it's time to take a day off?
yeah,
And I think what's going on is that you can almost think about it like hunger or thirst, where now I'm starting to see a little bit better that, like, given your work ethic and given your schedule and stuff like that, that like there's almost this like hunger meter, or like I need a fucking break meter, that is kind of like in the back of your mind. Like, how do you know when it's time to eat? You just, some part of your body, your mind just kind of tells you, right?
yeah,
And that's how you know. And so I think I think they're just, you are pretty self aware. And so I think that you've got certain dials that are kind of, you know, tuning up a little bit. And then you kind of really need to take a break, because it does
hmm
sound like you kind of ride yourself pretty hard. I think another thing that I think we could talk a little bit about, or I could share, because I know also, you've got vocal fry and stuff, and maybe I can do most of the talking for the next 10 or 15 minutes. But we could talk a little bit about spirituality, meditation, and the creative process. So,
sure,
I think a certain amount of it is definitely grind. But as you were saying earlier, like, I would almost describe, or based on the work that I've done with people, that, it's a state of consciousness where you're like, it's almost like the flow state, if you've heard that term.
yeah,
But where kind of ego is out of the picture, metrics are out of the picture, like even you are kind of out of the picture. And what you really are is like a conduit for music. And then everything is kind of flowing. And you kind of said that it happens rapidly, right? It's not like this analytical editing towards perfection kind of process. It's like, it's very spontaneous.
yeah,
I'm not surprised to hear that. So the thing that I've always struggled with in terms of helping people get to that state is, I've noticed that some people, I do think, not necessarily in the moment, but that substance use maybe a week before helps you get there in a weird way. I do think that using substances gives people the impression that they can be in that state, but oftentimes they're not quite as productive. Less true of
yeah,
musicians and artists that I've worked with. And some people will use hard drugs and just be like super creative. I think they just pay the price over time, and it's not really sustainable.
yeah,
But
definitely,
I think that there's, and I would also kind of echo for you as well that all of the intellectual stuff is important, following TikTok trends and stuff like that. But then, like, I do think that there's this process where you pull all that stuff in. You're paying attention, you're really working with your mind. But then the creation of music is when you transcend that process. You kind of like bring it all in, and then you stick it in a pot and you let it ferment. And then what comes out is different from what went in.
yeah,
It's almost like brewing beer, where it's like, we're going to put in hops, and we're going to put in this source of sugar, and we're going to put in this, and we're going to put a little bit of this, making wine, and we're going to put in these different kinds of, and then like what you get out of it is something that is its own thing. And you may not even be able to detect the components. But I think that flow state is actually really, really important.
no,
And
totally,
and cultivating. And I think that's where I'm not surprised, or I'm happy to hear that, you do exercise, you do take care about your diet and things like that, because I think all that stuff has to be there in order for you to really channel that state of consciousness. Because the thing is, you
yeah,
can't call it up. It's not a skill. Even with all of your experience, you'll enter into it, and you'll be kind of like, it'll be coming out of you, and then you'll lose it. And those 600 songs that never see the light of day are when you're trying to create and you don't access it. And so that was just one thing that I just thought was kind of interesting, because to hear you really talk about that kind of deeply profound sort of state that you get in, where it's like you know, like it's almost, it feels transcendent to me.
Yeah. No, I mean it is. It's honestly just a regurgitation. Inspiration is kind of like a regurgitation of what you've taken in for the past XYZ. So your point is very accurate. Um, and you know, sometimes I even lyrically, sometimes I will take inspiration from something that is relevant or something that is like newly relevant. Or unfortunately, sometimes I just like don't update my music afterwards. I write it, and then sometimes there's just like I remember there was one song I put out in like 2019. It was like 2017. What up? And and then you know, it's just like, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
The other
it's all the
question,
vibe.
the
Yeah,
other
go
question
ahead.
that I had for you is, can you tell me about Kendrick Lamar?
He's a goat. Like his last album, this song "We Cry Together." I don't know if you listen to Kendrick. Um,
Not much.
but his last song or his last album's great, and there's a song called "We Cry Together," and it's like a 5 minute song with I think some actor, a voice actor or an actor, but it was him arguing with his significant other, and it's just genius. Like I don't know you got to go listen to it. They're just arguing. It's pretty much like the heated amount of an argument from typical relationship shit into them going to have sex. And it's just yelling, swearing the whole way through. And it's just there back and forth. And it's like, how is this a song? And, you know, it
Mm.
is a song. It's just genius. And it's like, you don't, we're living through a time where he's like going to be like a legend, like undeniable legend to the point where people 100 years from now may listen to Kendrick Lamar. Um,
What
and that's a blessing.
what is it? What is it that makes him so good?
Um,
What do you respect about his work?
it's very contextualized, which a lot of music nowadays has no relevancy towards other songs. For instance, my music. Um, and he, you know, in a day and age of singles and just one type song drops, he still drops albums that are albums. And you know, a lot of other musicians do it, but he does it just better than most. Um,
Can,
that's pretty much it.
can you
It's
help?
just admirable.
Can you help
That's
me
all.
understand, what do you mean by contextualized?
Like everything sounds like it fits.
Like as an
Um,
album?
as an album, yeah. Like you listen to like Pink Floyd, you know, back in the day, it's like when you run an album, you run the album. You like have to listen to it in full because it just makes so much sense. They were the
Mm.
first people that were doing like beginning and end of songs that were running into the older songs when they like it would keep on
Mm.
the vinyl, it would go through, right? So, and they were the first people to do that. And like, look at them, legends, you know? Um, like I recently just listened to a bunch of Pink Floyd again. I was like, holy shit, they made some hits. Like really good songs. And you know, they went down in history for sure. They're still, you know, they're still history. That like it history in the making is right now with Kendrick Lamar and like some of these other greats. And he just he just embodies like an album really well. Um and it's almost like he's painting a picture. His songwriting ability is fabulous, and it's very vivid almost.
Mm.
Like Good Kid, Mad City is probably one of my favorite albums ever. And there's a scene where he's talking about like how his friend was shot in what's it called, and there's so many sound effects and there's so much like imagery just
Mm.
distilled in your brain when you're listening to the song, and it's like holy shit, like I can see this photo, I
Mm.
can see this happening. And not many musicians have that ability, you know what I mean? Like I can say like pee pee poo poo and stuff like that and fun stuff, but like my next album, I'm really going to spend I'm gonna dial it in. and I want it to be the best work of art that I've ever made, unquestionably, to the point where it's like, it's one of those things you nod your head and you're like, all right, like he did his thing here. And then at that point, I don't know what I want to do with music afterwards, but that'll probably come out next year. And I'm excited to like go to an island and get a studio and stay at this island for 2 months and turn my phone off and just let it all out. So, um, but that's why I like Kendrick. Kendrick is really great at painting a picture that
Yeah.
not many musicians can.
I'm so just to see if I kind of understand what you're saying. So like the first thing is that in this world of content creation, right? Which is such a soulless kind of
It is
like
list there.
algorithmic, like we're moving from blogs to vlogs to video essays to TikToks to, you know, a world from blogs to Twitter, right? 160 characters.
Mhm.
Everyone's making standalone songs, and Kendrick is making an album.
Yeah.
He's elevating it. It's like back in the day, like I mean, I don't even know if you're gonna remember this or if you were when I was growing up, like episodes for cartoons that I used to watch were not narrative. They were like one episode, and it has no connection to any of the other episodes. And
Mhm.
nowadays, what we have is we'll have like TV shows that are like narrative, right? They tell like one story over the course of a season or multiple seasons or things like that. And I'm almost hearing you kind of say that what Kendrick Lamar does is his whole album is like, as you mentioned, contextualized. So it all fits together. So
Yeah.
everyone else is making like, one-liners and he's just building something that's larger, which is so much harder to do.
I mean, he genuinely also has the ability to do that because like musicians nowadays, like if you just gotta drop singles until like you get a fan base. And like he's one of the biggest in the world. So if I was at his level and I didn't drop like an album that was like all front to back type thing, then I'd be doing a ginormous disservice to myself.
Sure.
Uh, because like that's what I want. That's what every musician wants. They want to be able to dial it in and write exactly like a perfect album.
Mm.
They want, obviously music is incredibly subjective, but they want to be able to write a front to back type thing where if you have that big of a fan base, like
You can afford to do that.
you can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whereas like me, like singles naturally just do infinitely better than album songs. Like if you go into any one of my albums, like my album tracks, like on a good day, they'll be doing like 6, 7 million in half a year. Whereas like a single probably will be sitting at minimum 15, 20. And, it's just like arguably like it's a night and day type of effect.
Sure.
Uh, so yeah, Kendrick's great as hell. He's the best.
And it also sounds like he's able to use music to paint a picture, which is
Oh, oh well.
which is so interesting just from a neurological perspective. Like I'm so
Yeah.
curious what's happening in the brain in terms of how that happens.
You'd be surprised. It's funny because we know absolutely jack shit about the brain, right? So maybe in the future we'll know. But I actually like I want you to go listen to We Cry Together after this
Sure, I
and
will.
just experience it because it's not something that you turn on at the party. It's barely something that you turn on with the boys. It's barely something you turn on in the car. It's like you listen to it and you're just like, wow, like this is like a work of art. This is like
Sure.
literally art. So it's great.
And Alex, what I'm also hearing from you is that, you know, this is going to be your year to really make the best music you've ever made.
I mean, knock on wood. But yeah, January, February, I've already told all my producer friends and all my friends, I was like, dude, I was like, we gotta dial it in. I like exercise, beachfront, like eating wherever island I'm gonna be on, eating local food every day, fish, like living the life of a successful musician, but more importantly, making what I really, really, really have been dying to do and like actually dial it in, you know, and like
Yeah.
however long it takes,
Yeah,
I
I
think.
think it's interesting because you talk about sort of living it up, but what I'm sort of hearing is that you're gonna need every percent that you can get. You're gonna need every drop that you can get to really create what you need to create. At the level that you're talking about when dialing it in, it's like you're gonna need that atmosphere, you're gonna need the sun, you're gonna need the fish, you're gonna need the waves, you're gonna need it all
Yeah.
because it's gonna take everything you've got and it's gonna take more. So you better set yourself up for success.
No, 100%. I actually like haven't been excited for something in a while, and like I'm really excited because like I finished all my shows in December 18th, and then I'm gonna probably do Christmas with my family, and then I'll leave. But yeah, it's gonna be sick. I'm gonna have so much inspiration because it's so difficult to write music on tour because voice and this and that.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be great. I'm excited for the future.
Cool.
Yeah, should
Yeah,
be
I
good.
mean, I feel like we're at a good point to stop. What do you think?
I'm all for it, man. I really appreciate you jumping on and allowing me to vent and you know I like hearing things back to me. So I
Yeah,
think
no, I was going to say I really appreciate you coming on and explaining Kendrick Lamar to me and a lot of other stuff. But
no,
I really just love to hear about your creative process and sort of like, you know, what it takes and what you've been through and how you manage it. And just in terms of the picture you painted in my mind of what January or February is going to look like, all I can say is like, I wish you the best of luck. And I think this is what you've been put on this earth to do, man. So you gotta
my
take.
friend my friend's mom talked to a medium and I was like she was like, "Can I mention your voice and or your name?" And I was like, "Sure." Like whatever. Like I love the mom. And she was like, "The medium said you're put on this planet to make music." So maybe
Trust.
she was just regurgitating what you were going to say, and yeah, I think I am. You know, it's not the best, but it will be. So that's the goal, right?
Words to live by.
Yeah.
Thank you very
There's,
much, man.
oh man, thank you. I ate like 6 halls during this and drank like 4 cups of tea. So we're hydrated, and now I'm gonna go get some food. So thank you for
Sound
your time, man.
sounds like a plan. Thanks so much for coming on. Best of
Oh,
luck to you, man.
absolutely.
Take care.
Cheers, Bob. Have a good one.